Welcome to Conversations with Bob and Sherry.
Hi, everybody. Hope everyone had a wonderful Christmas. So, Bob, did you have a good Christmas?
I did, very much so. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, how was it with the grandkids?
Terrific. I mean, kids make Christmas morning so much more fun.
Yeah, was Santa good to the children?
Yep, very good.
I just want to show a picture um, that we had, and I would recommend to every parents if you ever want to do this, it's so much fun. Here's a picture of there. Santa was at my house delivering toys.
All right. Who was Santa? Is that you?
So I can't say it. It was Santa. Let's just say it was Santa.
Okay.
Despite
All
of
right. So, what are we talking about today?
All right, so we have some really major headlines. One of the biggest thing, of course, is Title 42, and just today, Supreme Court has upheld Title 42. So we are going to be somewhat safe of that till February. They're going to start listening to the argument from both sides in February, and then to have a public hearing in the spring. So for now, Title 42 is staying in place. So give us some migrants. One of the things, a lot of migrants actually come into this country now with machine guns. That's based on some of the reports.
Machine guns?
Yeah, they all carry guns. They have artillery. Human traffickers. That's protect. And then they have a ban for each migrant. Or just have the migrant walk across the border. That's in the Arizona area and Texas area. So that's one of the
Okay.
topic. Another thing I found, it wasn't really reported in the major news, but I thought this was interesting. The 1.7 trillion dollars. The Human Health Service Department is estimating still 1.7 trillion Americans by next April could lose their Medicaid.
15. Right.
15 million. You would think that with the this much money. So here's an article from CNBC. It says the Health and Human Service Department has estimated that about 15 million people will lose coverage through Medicaid once the enrollment protections are no longer in place and states review individuals' eligibility based insurance program for the because they can't ability. So 15 million people would that would happen to. California has passed a bill that will protect and give comprehensive health care to 286,000 undocumented migrants. So there you
Mm-hmm.
go. And of course, we have the storm, and a lot of people know Buffalo got hit really, really bad. But what's not being widely reported is the looters stealing from homes and businesses. And we can talk more about it because we have family living in Buffalo, and they're handling the whole situation. So, which topic do you want to dive into first?
Okay. So, we have Buffalo. We have the
Title 42.
Title 42, right? And what was the first one?
Title 42 is the first one, and the
Okay.
omnibus bill that is going to cause estimating 15 million people lose their Medicaid coverage,
Right, right, right.
which that
Okay.
I not too many people know about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not being widely reported, but I thought it's important because healthcare
Sure.
is important to Americans.
Well, okay. So, the omnibus bill is a 1.7 trillion dollar spending bill. I wanted to find out because the government actually spends $6 trillion, in the neighborhood of $6 trillion a year. So it appears that the omnibus bill is what they call the discretionary part of the budget, and the balance, the other almost $5 million, is the non-discretionary or mandatory. So interestingly, almost all of our military is in the discretionary. So it's in the omnibus. And omnibus just means, they put a bunch of things together in a bill. And one of the reasons they claim they do this is it makes it easier to pass rather than doing a whole bunch of separate bills. But one of the criticisms is they use it to slide things in there that might not otherwise pass because they're just not that popular. So, they bury things in the omnibus bill, like what you just mentioned, the Medicaid change.
Mm-hmm.
So what I understand is the Medicaid.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, during COVID, one of the things the government did was said that Medicaid can't drop people. So apparently, people, as their income levels change and things, they'll be on Medicaid for a time. They'll drop off. They might go back on, depending on their employment situation and everything. So during COVID, they passed an act or something that said, okay, you can't. Medicaid cannot drop anyone off. They got to just, once someone's on there, they have to stay on there. So, like everything else, like the rent forgiveness and everything else, that just creates a problem down the road that nobody planned for. And that's what we're seeing now. They're ending that piece. So now Medicaid will be able to drop, I guess you said 15 million people, which, so now we have this big, a large number of people that don't qualify, and they're going to get dropped off all at the same time.
Well, I want to read a couple
Yay,
interesting.
government.
Yeah, yay government. Merry Christmas. Let me just let me just read a couple things as in this bill, which I believe I posted this picture, the breakdown on our Facebook, mostly politics with Bob and Sherry. Here's a couple interesting things that's in there. Watching hamsters fight on steroid. NIH, $3 million. So we're spending
Watch them
$3 million.
fight on steroids.
Yes, that's
So sort of a WWE of mice
hamsters. Yes. So
or hamsters.
I'm not sure
Hamster.
why we're doing that. It's $3 million. Super Bowl commercial telling to fill out census, 2.5 million. Injecting 6 months old beagle puppies with cocaine. That's another line item for the NIH.
They
That's
don't have beagles,
$3
do they?
million. Encouraging Ethiopians to wear shoes.
How much does that cost us?
2.1 million.
So this is in Ethiopia. So is that a campaign we're going to do in Ethiopia?
Yes.
Really? Why do we care if they wear shoes?
I don't know. This is another good one. I lost you, Bob.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay, that's okay. Oh, this is a really good one. Training mice to binge drink alcohol. NIH, $1.1 million.
I mean, they should just go to college campuses. You go right to the humans, and I mean, it's happening anyway. So
Oh my
study
God,
them.
cracking me up. Um, Studying the romance between parrots.
Parrots, the bird.
Bird, 689,000. Studying the social life and collective intelligence of ants.
Hmm.
Didn't we already had a movie about that? $675,000. So add this up, right? Verifying that kids love their pets.
Wow, that's
Hundred
important, I guess.
eighty-seven
Huh?
thousand. So I don't know. I think I can verify
Why?
that.
Why does that need to be verified? I think that's
Um,
pretty common
so
sense.
yeah. So this is some of the funnier spending. It's funny. It's not funny, but it's funny. But here's a good one. We just talked about that 15 million Americans are going to lose their Medicaid coverage. Very top line, I'm giving ineligible citizen COVID economic injury disaster grants by the SBA. That is $4.5 billion
What is it again? Giving COVID what?
given ineligible citizen COVID disaster grants. That's
All right, you broke up there. I don't know what COVID what?
so Wisconsin COVID economic injury disaster grant.
Okay.
Eligible citizen. They
Okay, so undocumented illegal aliens.
yes.
Okay. You haven't mentioned Ukraine. Ukraine's been a popular one.
You it's getting 45 billion.
Is it 45 or 65? I thought they already had 45 and we're giving them 65 now.
No, I think they got 16, but they're
Okay.
asking for another 45. Unused
So
hotel.
they're going to end up with 100 billion plus, and I heard that the entire military budget for Russia is 65 billion a year.
Right.
So
Right.
we're spending almost double what Russia's whole annual military budget is. So, I mean, if that money is being used effectively and efficiently, they should be able to beat Russia tomorrow.
Right. But we did give Russia the what do they call the angel of death? Um. Well, one of the interesting thing too is a Starbucks espresso machine for the DoD costs $192,000.
Hmm.
And unused hotel rooms for illegal immigrants, $17 million.
Wow. Unused.
Unused hotel room for illegal immigrants. It will be
Oh, I see. Yeah, paying for unused hotel rooms so that illegal immigrants can stay there. Yep. Nice.
a radio campaign telling driver to stop at the railroad crossing, $200,000.
So we don't have any homeless Americans, people that could use a hotel room here and there?
I guess not. I guess not. So I posted this chart on our Facebook. If you want to go see it, either you're gonna laugh or cry. It's there for you to see. This is how our government's going to spend their money. On another note, if you remember, the IRS was going to auditing and asking people to report if they Venmo, use or Cash App transaction like $600
Mm-hmm.
to report to the IRS. They're gonna halt that for a year, just so people.
Oh, a whole year now. Great.
Whole year. Yeah. So for the gig workers that is concerned about that, and a lot of people selling their stuff on Facebook Market,
Right.
that's all being tracked. So yeah, if you happen to have that, I think right now you don't have to report it unless it exceeds $20,000.
I thought it was 10, but whatever. Okay.
Yeah, I read it somewhere was 20, but we can definitely verify that. So
Yeah, I've
there's,
never been a fan of that $600 deal either.
well, Biden said he's going after the rich people.
Well, I think what people don't understand, I mean, just quick numbers. I mean, when we did the COVID $1,600 checks, I did the math back then. And I think I figured out if we taxed every billionaire in the United States 100%, so in other words, took every penny they had, that would have funded that program for something like 3 months. So what people don't understand, there's really not that much money in taxing the rich, not nearly as much as there is in taxing the middle class, just because of scale. So if you tax the middle class, $1,000, you're going to gain a lot more money than if you tax a handful of rich people something much more. So when they say they're taxing the rich, the $600 is taxing you and me and everybody trying to make a living.
Well, yeah, because
and really not even make a living, but just take advantage of the fact that you have a something, you no longer need it, you'd like to sell it, now you got to pay taxes on it. You've already paid taxes on the money you used to buy it.
right. Well, here's another line item that I think it should be. It's $168 million. The government wants to spend 168 million to help illegal immigrants avoid deportation. Help illegal
So,
immigrants
okay,
avoid.
so our government is going to spend 168 million to help people avoid our government's laws.
Right. And then another interesting $210 million is being spent for basic education projects in Jordan, the country of Jordan. 210 million. We don't have a basic good education here in the United States, but we're going to spend 210 million in Jordan. Why? Isn't it a war-torn country?
I don't know.
So I think this is yeah. I invite everybody to go on our website, to our Facebook page, to take a look at this chart. I'll repost it again today.
So of that 6 trillion is which what the government really spends.
Hmm.
The biggest, the by far the biggest piece of the budget is Social Security, and then Medicare and healthcare. And when they say Medicare and healthcare, that includes Medicare, but also the government employees' healthcare.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think those two are over half the budget alone, over half the
Yeah, and
six
then
trillion.
the 1.7 trillion, honestly, is also about half of it goes to pay for our treasury, our interest.
Oh yeah, that's a big.
Yeah.
That's about 8% of the federal budget is
Yep.
interest.
Yep. So there you go. But I mean, if you add out all the silly items, I mean, to me, they're silly, but to some people, maybe they're not silly. Maybe there's something to watching hamster fight on steroid, or I don't know, trying to teach mice how to binge drink alcohol. I don't know why. why, why does
Well,
that?
that Medicaid thing. Again, I mean, it was frozen during COVID, which just created this problem now. So,
Hmm.
do we keep people on Medicaid now into perpetuity? I mean, the right thing to do really is to scale that back, go back to the original policy. But that's one of the beefs I had about all these things they did during COVID. There was never a thought out plan. Okay, we know when we do this, we're creating a problem down the road, a hardship for a lot of people. So people become dependent when you're giving them money and giving them or telling them they could stay in their apartment without having to pay their rent and things like that. You're not. I mean, I get it. You want to try and protect people during this pandemic, but all you've done is created a problem down the road,
Well,
and
government
it's
created
hard.
that.
It's hard for Americans to swallow when you then look at California that's going to give $250,000 of illegal immigrants free health care.
Yeah, and talk about the rental thing. Because the rental policy that was pushed out during COVID, here's what's created. Because I have several people that can't find a place to rent. The rental has gone up tremendously. Number one, because these landlords have to make up what they lost during the
Right.
pandemic. And
And most
secondly,
of the landlords aren't rich people either.
no. And secondly, no, the landlord now require 3 months of deposit. So if you rent a place that's $900, you have to give the landlord $2,700, and you have to have very good credit, and they need a work history proof. So for a lot of people, it is start to be extremely difficult to find place to rent. And if you rent a place, it's very expensive. So what essentially happened is that what happened, the policy that happened during COVID now is pushing all the landlords changing their behavior, which make it harder for people that needs to rent a place to rent.
Right. Ah, I mean, it's pretty much always happens, right? As soon as the government intervenes and starts manipulating or trying to control the economy and people's lives, there's always unintended consequences that are very predictable too.
Yep.
You know, people talk about side effects of drugs. It's a side effect of policy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it happened in China, right? They wanted to want the one child policy for so many years.
Right.
Now they're pushing everybody to have 3 kids because they realize in the Chinese culture, most people don't want a girl, and they
Right.
have multiple children. So now they realize, well, without women, we can't.
Yeah.
You can't grow the population.
So you had a country of men. They were aborting the girls.
Right.
Nice, huh?
Well, give the girls away. So
Oh,
yeah.
really?
Oh yeah. That's why a lot of the Chinese girls are being adopted outside the country. But I think it was 5 to 8 years ago, the government put a stop to it, that they would not no longer allow anybody to adopt girls. The girls have to be adopted within the country because the shortage of women.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that is a big concept. That was a big social problem created by the government. So now that went for, oh, go have 2 kids. Oh no, we need you to have 3 kids
Well,
now.
I mean, gender is a social construct. It shouldn't matter. I mean, what
Right.
is a woman anyway?
Right.
We
Well,
don't need them.
I think in China they still believe that women is a woman. If you're born a
Yeah, I
woman,
think they believe that it takes a man and a woman to make a baby and,
right?
that kind of thing.
Yeah, in
They're
China
so
they're still.
bigoted.
Yeah, I know they are. I know. How crazy. I just saw a TikTok video not long ago. It was funny. It was this transgender woman acting out because she felt menstrual pain. So, but we have to acknowledge the fact that she has the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Like it
Sure.
doesn't work that way, but whatever. Um, so, so let's talk about Title 42 and think, this is the good thing of the check and balance of this country. The founder has put it in place.
Right.
So, so we avoided this massive problem. I mean, it's already been a problem, right? We went from
Mm-hmm.
500,000 illegal entries during Trump administration. Now we're at 2.5 million.
Right. And
All
it will go up. How many
yeah,
did you say for Trump?
550,000 were
Okay.
reported in 2019, and
Okay.
2.5 million. So we are what,
Five
five
times.
times? Mm-hmm. 5 times as much.
500% increase.
Yeah. So
So,
that with drugs coming in, that's human trafficking. I mean, we've talked about this many times on the show, so I think we're good there.
so I,
Um,
so I guess what happened was somebody went to court to try to end Title 42. It's like a pro, you know, refugee immigration group or something. And the judge at the circuit court in D.C. Ruled in favor of them to end it. Well, so I think 19 state attorney generals took a case to the Supreme Court and said, challenged that ruling to say this is wrong. They can't end Title 42. So the Supreme Court's basically agreed with them in a 5-4 decision, with Gorsuch, one of the conservative justices, actually siding with the, liberals. But I actually agreed with Gorsuch's, minority or dissenting opinion, which, by the way, only Ketanji Brown Jackson or Jackson Brown, whatever her name is, she sided with Gorsuch in this opinion, but the other two, Sotomayor and Kagan, they said no, we're not, we don't agree with that. So they all four voted together, ruled together, but they didn't all go unanimously along with Gorsuch's opinion. And his opinion was basically that it's not the court's job to legislate. He took another, this is sort of like a legislation where we're telling people if they can have a policy or not have a policy. It's just whether it's legal or not. So he didn't think the court should really be involved, and that's why he wanted to roll against overturning it. But I don't know. It doesn't make total sense to me because a court already ruled. So there was already, a judicial intervention.
yes, and
So
that's what the
anyway,
court is there for, right? The court is there to be the third leg of the government. To
right.
Yeah,
It's supposed to be an independent, so we're a constitutional democracy. We're not a king. You don't have a king that makes the laws and rules on his own. It's all in our Constitution, and then the laws that we make underneath of it are the highest. That's why they say all the time, nobody's above the law in America. I mean, historically, there were people above the law. The law was made by the people in charge. And, arguably, you could say that happens in some of these totalitarian countries. But, yeah, so that's what the court is supposed to be, an independent interpreter of the law. And in the case where, the legislature makes laws, the court can decide if that law is constitutional or not. So anyway, a lower law can't violate, the higher law of the land. But it's temporary. What I thought was interesting, it seems like the Biden administration is happy that the court kept it in place. I mean, they didn't say anything. Oh, we're just going to do what they said. Court said it. We're going to do it. I mean, contrast that with the White House statements after the Roe v. Wade ruling, the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So, it's clear that the White House is happy because they don't want to see Title 42 end abruptly because they know it's going to be a nightmare as well, and they're not prepared to handle it.
Well, there'll be more migrant being dropped out at Kamala Harris's house, so I don't think.
Well, yeah, and they can't go along with it. They can't openly go along with Title 42, the administration, because then they'll upset their left wing, base. So
yeah, so they can blame the court for it. And,
yeah, we're just going to do the court said it. We're just going to do what they say. Well,
yep.
No problem.
Right, they just do it. And then I was thinking, you said no one's above the law, but not if you're Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Buffalo, huh? Holy camole.
Yeah, I watched some of those videos of the looting. There were actually a lot of videos at one Family Dollar. So, at first I thought, is that the only, but I saw Walmart. So there are multiple places that have been looted.
Well, interestingly, my brother-in-law, he was he's a retired police. He's been in Buffalo, he's a Tonawanda police for over 35 years. And he just recently moved out to a place that's 30 minutes away from Rochester. So we've been checking in with him. And, they didn't get hit. So Buffalo got hit the worst because the lake affects snow. And I think they're still getting more snow. Now, I'm not sure it's the weather snow, or they said when the wind blows, it basically blows the snow everywhere. But a lot of people are barricading their house. And, my husband still have a lot of family there. And my sister and my mother lives in Buffalo. But a couple of days ago, I sent you this picture. My brother-in-law posted this on Facebook. It says 5 minutes ago, 2.3 miles away, breaking into homes. Men are breaking into homes, looting. 3 men with knives. They're in the St. Lawrence area by Kenmore and Coven. Please be safe. And that's exactly, Kenmore and Coven is exactly where my brother-in-law used to live. And we're so happy he moved out to the country. But there's still a lot of people in Buffalo suffering from it. You have to be really low to do this type of thing in the middle of a snowstorm where people are dying, and there's a lot of people who have no electricity.
Didn't the mayor use the phrase "lowest of the low"?
Lowest of the low. And I'm surprised the media is not reporting it. I mean, I've seen left-wing media, right-wing media. Nobody is talking about the looting part of it.
Well, if they were wearing MAGA hats, they certainly would.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Trump flags.
Right.
They'd have been all over it.
The only interesting thing is when they're they're not even looting for basic stuff. They're looting for they're not looting for necessities. And that's another sad part about it. If that's the case, the grocery store will be looted. But they're looting for sneakers and TVs and that type of thing. So, I mean, I just can't believe people would risk their life in the middle of a snowstorm to loot a store. You have to be kidding me.
I mean, at the Family Dollar, there were people, and I guess what does a dollar store sell? But bringing like laundry detergent, things like that out. And one of the videos, the guy filming was confronting them, saying, "Stop! Put that back! Put that back!" Sort of scolding them, and they were obeying him. They looked like young people, you know. So all it took was a guy with a phone to say, "Put that stuff away," and you know, so I mean, the store was really in bad shape by then anyway, but you know,
Right.
it was
And
kind
then,
of good to see.
well, another thing is a lot of people probably think, oh, these are big chains. They have money, the corporate chains that can replace it.
Well, yeah,
But understand, Walmart and Target and all these big chain stores, they are closing their stores in areas with high, you know, high
right.
robbery rates, high theft rates. So essentially, these communities are going to lose these stores.
Well, right, and then they'll be down the road. All we have are liquor stores. We don't have any grocery stores. This, that, and you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
if company can come in there and make money, they would. But if there's a lot of loss, they're going to leave.
what, for example, we lost a Walmart here at the Waterworks Mall, and one of the reason is because there's a lot of theft.
Yeah, yeah,
You're right. If they're making money, why would any company leave? But if they're going to have a high rate of theft, no one's watching, they will leave. And what's really funny, on my Facebook page, there was a memory came up from last year. And during this time, last year, the IRS made an announcement and saying if you have stolen goods, you need to report it on your income. Remember that?
yeah, yeah. It's sort of
And
like the government helping immigrants violate our laws.
yeah, so if you steal something, report it in your income unless you return it. I'm like, really? You think they were stealing things, they would report it? They wouldn't be stealing things. This is
Hmm.
I just Googled this real quick so I can just read this. It was December 30th, 2021, and the IRS says if you've stolen something, you need to report it as income on your taxes.
Right.
Sure, because that's what people stealing things will do. It's unbelievable.
You know, I mean, back to the immigration because my brain just went there. I mean, some of the things Trump did was, I mean, first of all, he had a tough rhetoric. Okay, so you know, just sort of communicated a tough stance on immigration. So that kind of, you know, demotivates or dissuades people from wanting to come. He did the remain in Mexico policy, where it's like, you know, we'll process your claim and we'll consider you, but we're not going to let you in the country. You have to stay in Mexico. And the Mexican government agreed to cooperate on that. And I think one of the other things was you can't leave a Central American country, go into Mexico, travel the entire length of Mexico, and then come to the United States and claim asylum because you're under threat. I mean, you weren't under threat in Mexico. So, you know, if you're from Guatemala or one of those other countries, as soon as you get into Mexico, there's your asylum. So if they're continuing this long trek all the way to the northern part of Mexico to come to the United States, it's not about asylum. They just want to come to the United States.
Well, when you have comprehensive health care by Governor Newsom, why wouldn't you want to come to the United States?
Yeah. I mean, I think the main reason is their ability to make, you know, much more money than they can make in their home countries. You know, certainly crime, I guess, is a part of it. And, you know, that all contributes, but it's just poor economic conditions. So I think they want to come here because they can make more money. And a lot of times they send it back home.
What I don't understand is if those people, the government is so bad in those countries, why wouldn't they do something to change the government there and instead
Right.
of coming here? And the crime rate has been risen, especially this year.
Hmm.
So it's not like getting any better, but yeah,
Well, I agree with that, but I've heard, you know, people on the left say, well, solve the root of the problem. And what they were actually advocating for was just giving money to these countries. Well, I'm not in favor of that, but, you know, work with those countries. And if there is any money that changes hands, make them earn it. Make them show that they're doing certain things to reduce crime and things, and reward it. But
I think that was what Trump did, right? The Trump said, "You don't take your people back, I'm not giving you a dime," and then
yeah,
they were taking their people back.
Trump's the first president I can remember that it really did that. That said, okay, we give all these countries money. He even did it to NATO.
Hmm.
Remember? And everybody freaked out, lost their mind. But I mean, come on, that's our money. That they're his responsibilities to the American taxpayer. And yeah, if people are taking advantage or we're not getting our interests aren't being served properly through that money, then we should question it.
Right. So he's the first one said, "You take them back, or you get no money." He said the
Right.
next day they called and said, "We're taking our people back," right? And then they
Mm-hmm.
locked him in jail. Hey, real quick, December 26th, and this is an article on NBC. Chinese military sent 71 aircraft and 7 ships towards Taiwan within 24 hours. That's because of the in the 1.7 trillion dollar omnibus bus bill, they're indicating we're selling weapons to Taiwan. Now, here's the thing.
I didn't know that. So
Yeah,
that's a direct response to our spending bill to
yeah,
sending money
because
to Taiwan.
yeah, because the Chinese government objected to U.S. defense bill signed into law Friday that includes greater support for Taiwan military. So to be a, but this is not the first time the Congress. We always have passed bills to support Taiwan, but because we have the White House we have, so Beijing has no problem.
Well, they saw what happened in Afghanistan. They saw what happened in Ukraine. It's a green light for China to do what they want.
Right. Another interesting thing. So North Korea during Trump administration, they tested 5 rockets, and just this year they tested 98
Wow.
in the North Korean peninsula. So 5 rockets during the Trump administration and 98 just within this year.
Well,
And
and
I,
if you believe everything that the news media tells you, if that forms your worldview, you believe that all the tough talk and all the things that Trump did was pushing us towards World War III, and but you can see that anybody who's paying attention should be able to see now how weakness is what's going to push us towards a World War III, not strength. I mean, it's just frustrating for me because I just don't understand it. I don't understand how people can think this way and not see what's really going on.
well, the problem is going to be South Korea is we're pushing South Korea and Japan to China because America essentially is not talking to North Korea. North Korea keeps sending out rockets, and China is the one reaching out to North Korea now to say, hey,
Right.
knock it down a notch. And so one of the rockets got very close to the Japan Peninsula, which is a fairly dangerous situation. And we all know Japan have a lot of nuclear power plants there. It could have caused a disaster. So we're pushing we're pushing Russia to China. We're pushing Japan and South Korea to China.
Yep.
And eventually that's going to push India to China as well. So what we would lose our allies in the Asian continent, and Taiwan would be very isolated. So, um, the only good thing that's happening in China right now, they do have a lot of social problems. They're loosening up the COVID restriction, and they do have a lot of protests in the country. So,
Well, and I read they have like millions of COVID infections and serious illness because they had their because of their zero COVID policy. Their people, the Sinovac is a garbage vaccine, and their people didn't develop any natural immunity. So it's
that
like,
report might be a little exaggerated. My father been talking to people in China. Yeah, people are getting infection, but it's not no bigger than a cold.
okay, well that's what it is here.
Yeah, no bigger than a cold. So people are all understand. I think the Chinese people themselves are start to, they're aware what's going on, but I'm not sure the reporting here is
Yeah, wow.
absolutely
That
accurate. I mean, we have to understand we have 380 million people in this country. There's 1.4 billion people. So
Yeah.
to say a million people get infected, it's not the same as a million people is infected here. It just is
Yeah.
such a bigger population. So, yeah. But I thought that's kind of dangerous. I was saying that I believe Thanksgiving, Christmas time, China will be invading Taiwan at some point to send
Hmm.
71 aircraft and I don't know how many. I don't. Let me see how many. And 7 ships towards Taiwan.
7 ships. Yeah.
And then they control the South China Sea. They have a military base there.
Hmm.
So if a war does start to happen, I really don't know how America will be able to, interfere that. Even
Yeah,
Taiwan.
and Taiwan is they have conscription, which is mandatory or compulsory military service. They had just reduced it to 4 months. They now, in response to this China action, they've increased it to 12. So they're preparing to have to defend themselves.
Right, right. And then Taiwan is. They see what happened in Afghanistan. They see what happened with this administration. They probably quietly saying, "Hey, we can depend on." They saw what happened in Ukraine, right?
Yeah,
Because
but I would say Taiwan is by far the more developed country compared to Ukraine and of course Afghanistan. So
absolutely,
that, I
absolutely,
mean, we're kind of sold this bill of goods about Ukraine being this stable, wonderful democracy, and it really wasn't. But
hmm
Taiwan is definitely a stable, developed country,
and
and
I
we're
think.
dependent on them for microchips.
Well, I think a lot of times people don't realize the people in Taiwan has experience and understand what happened in China during the Cultural Revolution when Communism Party first took over Taiwan. A lot of their great grandfather were murdered, killed by the Chinese communism government. So I think those things are still very much ingrained in their head. Um, yeah, and I hopefully that Biden is not going to make comments like, "Oh, it's okay if it's a minor incursion." That's pretty much invited Russia to invade Ukraine at that point.
Uh huh.
And we don't even know what's going on with this war in Ukraine now. They're having parties, celebrating Christmas. They're getting $45 billion, and the president is coming in. All the celebrities flying over there. Like, is there a war going on over there? What is happening over there? We don't see
Mm-hmm.
no footages anymore. So,
Did you see this tweet from Lesia Vasilenko? She's a Ukrainian member of parliament.
no.
And she tweeted out a picture of a little boy, dirty face, his eyes sort of looking off to the side, sort of, just emotionally distraught kind of look. And her tweet says, "The saddest part, colon, there are no children in Ukraine anymore. Only little humans with very grown up eyes, old even, somewhat tired of a life yet unlived." And they said, pictured as Mark, 8 years old, just survived a Russian artillery attack.
Hmm.
And then a whole bunch of people replied to that. There was a book written about 14 years ago, and this boy's face, the exact picture that she sent out, was on the cover of the book.
Oh my.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff we've been seeing out of Ukraine. I mean, it's just propaganda. And
Wow.
I mean, the crazy thing is, there's a ton of people that have called her out for it. And the last I looked, which was yesterday, she still had the tweet up.
Yeah, well, Twitter is, it's a public forum now. So I think that that's good that people call her out for it, and that's good that the tweet stayed on.
Yeah, but you would think she would delete it. I'm scrolling now. I don't know if it may be gone now. I think it's gone. All right, there were a lot of replies to it, but it looks to me like it's gone.
Wow.
Let me see. I took a screenshot. Yeah, there were 2.7 million views,
Wow.
11.5 thousand retweets.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
So here's a funny thing. Somebody replied to her tweet, absolutely tragic. One of the most vital aspects of development for children is feeling safe and cared for. How can children in a war zone experience that feeling? I just can't imagine. Somebody replied to him with the photo of the book and said, "You've been had." Someone replied to this guy saying, he tagged Elon Musk and some other people and said, "Is this not against Twitter's policy? Copyright at least." So this person's literally complaining about the people that are posting the true information, saying this has to be a problem, at least a copyright, defending this, propaganda of this little boy.
Right.
So,
So that's why Twitter is so much better now, because we can see all sides of arguments and
right.
defend. Um, Another thing, I want to just get into this. Apparently, the Republican committee investigating January 6th that's coming up, they found emails of Nancy Pelosi denying extra resources to the Capitol. So that would be interesting when the GOP,
Right.
as a majority, to see if some of those things are coming out. But it was email. House Republican gathered a trove of text and email messages show House Speaker Nancy Pelosi office was directly involved in the creation and editing of the Capitol security plan that failed during January 6, 2021 riot. And that security official later declared that had been denied again and again the resources needed to protect one of the nation's most important homes of democracy. So I would like to see some of those email messages and text messages. That's what's great about the Twitter file, is they show the actual communication, and it was not embellished. It's just something that's evidence for everybody to look at. So that'll
Right.
be interesting to see. I think when will the GOP take over the House? January 20th, I think.
Early January. I think it's
Okay.
earlier than when the presidents are January 20th. I think the House takeover happens earlier in January.
Yeah. So I would
So,
be interesting to see if those things gets put in public.
yeah.
So and
I mean, I feel like these Twitter files. I've been following. One side will say that. I saw some people saying the other day that, all this controlling of information that the government was trying to do was good because people were dying of COVID and we needed to stop the misinformation about vaccines and things like that. But I mean, I think it really, if people were honest, we should be able to have a real discussion about free speech and how does that work now with something like a Twitter? Because all of our lives, it's only certain companies with resources and money had access to broadcast, their ideas and their opinions and things to everyone in the country and the world. And now every individual has the ability to broadcast. Now, not everybody has an audience, but we can say whatever we want to say, and it's out there. It's global. So the voice of the individual is stronger than ever. And we have a lot of people in this country that are saying we need to respond to that by controlling it. I think that's completely wrong. And I said this early on in the pandemic, and I think that the government and these left wing people have to shift their thinking and stop thinking in terms of control. What we need to do is we need to educate our population. We don't need a subservient, controlled, population where we have to filter everything that they know and hear. What we should be doing is teaching people how to make their own decisions, how to think critically and how to grow. Like for the vaccines, I mean, what the government, if the government recommends a vaccine, there's a large portion of the population that are just going to get it. Okay, let's say that's 50%. And then no matter what you do, there's a small portion of the population who are never going to want to get it. These call them the anti-vaxxers. Let's say, for sake of example, that's 10%. So that leaves you 40% in the middle. What the government should have done was targeted that 40%. If they really wanted to increase the vaccine uptake, they should have targeted that 40%. And the way you do it is to give them transparent, accurate information. The more information, the better. Teach them how to understand what the vaccine's doing and why it's a good thing, and be honest about what the risks are. And I think if they had done that, we would have seen a lot faster and greater, higher percentage of acceptance of the vaccine. But instead, they targeted the 10%. And they targeted them with attacks. They called them names, and they tried to control what was being said on Twitter and social media, and they tried to silence dissenting doctors. And when they did it, all they did was the 40% said, wait a minute, why are they trying to hide all this stuff? It made them suspicious. And there were seeming contradictions. Science changes, okay? So sometimes what you said in this week, a month later, it doesn't apply anymore. Like the vaccines not, stopping you from getting COVID. That was true. The data showed that was true in the beginning. But then the virus mutated, okay? So all people see is you lied. Okay, so what I think they ended up doing was growing that 10% more than they would have if they would have targeted the 40. So I think something like 67% of the population have been vaccinated, and I believe they could have been much closer to 80% and a lot faster if they'd have done it the right way. And, again, the right way is not control, but the right way is to empower and equip people and respect people as being intelligent and able to make their own decisions. Until that changes, I think our country's heading in the wrong direction until somebody starts to do that.
Well, I believe that a lot of people did not get the vaccine just because the vaccine is so new, has never been tested, so nobody knows what the long-term effects.
And that's valid.
Yeah,
and that's all valid.
And then the fact that they were pushing so hard for the kids to get it is not effective.
Bingo.
And so once it become your child, you become very skeptical. Like, why are you pushing this vaccine? Or anybody that's younger than 50 with no comorbidity issue, with they're healthy. So I think that's the problem. The fact that they were pushing so hard. Now, I can understand if they say, you know what, we recommend everybody that's older than 65, that's obese, and that have all the comorbidity, here's why you should get it. And then here's why you choose to get it. But when no kids are dying from it, and they just get it, my son got it, he had a sore throat for 2 days.
Yep.
Okay? Why am I going to vaccinate the kid if this is all he got, and now he has natural immunity?
And from the first time they gave them to younger people, that's where the myocarditis and the more extreme side effects came up.
Right.
But so that's the same thing I'm talking about.
Right? They were suppressing it. 8, 10, 16-year-old kids are especially in boys.
Right.
They would start having enlarged heart. They would start having heart attack symptoms. Now, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a biologist, but I know very small percentage of the kids that never born with a heart condition are not going to have heart issues at 8 to 10 to 16 years old. So
and right now, I believe it's Sweden and the UK have now said that young people should not get the vaccine because the risk is much higher with the vaccine and the risk with the virus is much lower, and that has always been the case. And what you're saying is the same thing I'm saying is, they acted like they were so afraid of that 10% and so afraid of people, they talked about misinformation. Well, they were the ones sending out misinformation. I mean, I knew a man he's a grandfather. His children had a 6-month-old baby, and they couldn't wait to vaccinate that baby. They weren't going to allow the baby to see any of the adults or anything until they could get it vaccinated. And that hurt me because I followed this stuff, and I didn't follow the fringe. I followed the mainstream science, and when I wanted to understand how vaccines work and how viruses work, I looked for information pre-COVID. And I mean, I could tell you that to want to vaccinate a 6-month-old baby, No, no, I'm sorry. I mean, I just feel bad for those people that they were that badly misled.
Well, I gotta tell you now. I think Norway or Sweden, they're collecting unvaccinated blood. Their blood bank are taking people their blood that's not vaccinated.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think with the Twitter file, I think Twitter file just had a big dump on COVID, and I
Right.
feel like that's not going to be stopping. I think there's way more information. The fact that Elon Musk tweeted that Fauci should be prosecuted, I felt like he already knew. He probably seen things, and I think that's just going to
Well,
come out.
my belief is that's why Fauci retired. He knew that this was coming, and I
Yeah.
mean, he turned political. I thought he did a fine job in the beginning, but he turned political, and he was loving the attention. He was like, when I saw him Grand Marshal of a parade, that's when I thought the guy's lost. He's lost it now. You can't tell me that you stand up for science and you're accepting a invitation to be Grand Marshal and this cult hero.
Well, I mean, remember when the pandemic first started? It was in February. He said, "Yeah, mask is not going to help. You
Right.
cannot mask. Mask is not helping you." Uh,
Wow.
then
That
all of
was
a sudden,
here's the full statement. It was self-contradictory. Okay?
yeah,
They said the masks will not help you because of the particle size, this and that. And they're an essential part for our healthcare workers. So don't buy masks because they won't help you, but our healthcare workers desperately need them. Well, that's self-contradictory. Okay? They lied when they said that it won't help you. They didn't believe that. They believed that the masks did help, and they wanted the masks to go to the healthcare workers, and they wanted us to all stay home.
yeah, that's true. Hey, real quick. So I finished Meghan Markle and Harry. I finished a Netflix documentary. I watched the whole second part. Um,
Okay.
and I want to publicly invite my friend Erin Kathleen to come on. I think her and I have a different view on that. I wanted to
I would
really,
love to see this. I'll moderate.
I would
Yes, I
love
saw that. Aaron was very critical and condescending towards this whole, Meghan and Harry, and I saw you were sort of defending them. I'd love to have you guys
Well,
come together and
I think I just
hash through
wanted,
it.
yeah, I wanted to keep an open mind to put myself in their shoes, kind of get an understanding what's happening. Now, I have to say, the second part of the Meghan and Harry show, it became a little bit more, I would say, petty. And it, it's like, now, my thing is, you marry into this monarchy, and their job is to be the figurehead of the country. They have no power. They're being uh, they're being paid by the taxpayer as the representative of the country. This is very important to Britain. I mean, I'm sure if the British people vote on it, they can dismantle this monarchy at any given time. And this documentary, I think, is going to cause a lot of bad feelings in the Commonwealth of the monarchy. And, you know, I just think if you marry into this family and you saying that you can't do this, you can't do that, no, this is not this. This is an institution you're marrying into. This is a job of being a royal. This is not celebrity. You're not here to, enjoy the luxury life. And I was watching a documentary. The queen is having oatmeal for breakfast. It's not even in a nice bowl. So they live, in a private life. They want to keep their private life private. And the fact that this was all air out in the public, I think that's very much destroying the monarchy. So I think that the second half, I'm starting to see a little bit like, I don't know if you should say that. But I thought it was really weird. They're referring each other as H and M. They're not saying Megan or Harry. They're like H and M. I'm like, is that how you? I mean, that would be. Is that how you
I
refer to
mean,
each other?
I haven't watched it, okay, but just from what I've observed, I listened to some commentary on what happened. I've listened to you. I personally think that what you just said, you hit on something. I find that highly disrespectful, the way Meghan affected this family, highly disrespectful to a long standing institution, the pride of the UK and other countries, the Commonwealth of Nations, even Canada. And, there are other countries that's their Commonwealth of Nations, that's their queen. I just find it very disrespectful of all those people in this long-term institution, and really the height of arrogance, to come in there and then make it all about you. I don't believe, the claims of racism. I don't believe that for a minute. And, I just think it was a selfish, arrogant thing for them to bring all this negative press and things down on the royal family, all for their own self-serving agenda.
Well, I feel like Harry is almost there to protecting Meghan, like he would have protected his mother, and which I can understand that aspect. I mean, he lived a pretty sheltered life, and the interesting thing was when Meghan Markle was, I guess, when they first got married, they lived in this near Windsor Castle, but it's a little village of Windsor Castle, and the complaint was it's really small. She said it's not really that glamorous. So I think
What's that, Windsor Castle?
Windsor Castle, next to Windsor Castle, there's some kind of village
Oh,
that they
okay.
end up living in, and they said, "Oh, you can't believe how small it is." So she wasn't too happy with.
Is it part of Windsor, like part of the
Part
town?
of Windsor, yeah, part of
I mean,
Windsor.
I've been there. So it's not.
It's
Well,
not the
what?
size
Because
of it, right?
I mean, apartments and homes generally in England are very small compared to American North American standards. Very,
So
very small.
they went, I think the Frog Village or somewhere, and then she wound up calling Tyler Perry, which I don't think they probably had any previous relationship. I don't believe Meghan Markle and Tyler Perry have any type of relationship. So here she said, we're Britain, we went to Canada, we couldn't stay there. I guess at that point they just don't have the money. So Tyler Perry wound up giving them one of his personal homes. I mean, Tyler Perry is a very wealthy filmmaker, and they live in this basically a beautiful mansion. He says stay as long as you want, and then they wind up signing a deal with Netflix and buying their own mansion, live a high life as celebrities, and as I second part of the documentary, I start realizing they have made this deal with Netflix long before they made that statement to leave the royal. If you keep
Wow.
watching what's happening, everything was documented.
Well, there's your motivation to create a scandal.
Right. So, so the second part, it really kind of, to me, come clear that this was always in the plan. And even Whoopi Goldberg criticized her because she said she was on the show Deal or No Deal. She was the girl that opening the case. They hold the. You ever watch that show, Deal or No Deal? So each girl will carry a case with a dollar amount in it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. I I
Yeah,
I, I think I remember vaguely.
that's how she started. Like she was one of the case carrying girls. Okay.
Okay.
So she said that she felt objectified. She felt this because every girl have to dress up, and like they're all dressed up in their body tight dresses, and they all have to look good. Go open the case, and she felt objectified. And Whoopi Goldberg actually made a criticism, say, "Hey, you took this job. You mean no audience care about what you look like? They care about the money in the case. That was the
Right.
point of the game." But a lot of the girls, that was their stepping stone to move on to something else. Um, yeah, I want to have Erin Kathleen come on the show and talk about Meghan and Harry because I just think it's fun, to see. It is really, if you watch the second half, it is very impacting politically for the institution, for the country, and the fact that people they are encouraging people to leave the Commonwealth, and they also saying things I can see that can destroy that family, and that was all done on purpose because Meghan and Harry did not get their way.
Wow. So you sound like you've switched sides now.
Not switching besides, I understand the beginning their struggles, right? It's just like you marry into any family. Like I marry into a family from Buffalo. They are Italian. It's a culture shock to go into any family, as a
Right. That's a good
stranger,
point. That's a good
right?
point.
So I understand the beginning of it. I remember when I first got married, I was sitting in my mother in law's living room watching everybody opening gifts, and it dawned on me, these are all strangers to me. I don't know these people. I
Hmm.
literally just met these people a few months ago. I'm sitting in the middle of the living room watching this happening, and I have never had any relationship with these people except for the fact that I married my husband. I understand that mentality. You're in a different country, you marry into a different family. But the royal families, everybody knows the royal family. Everybody knows the deal, right? You have to
Well,
wait
yeah,
till
you have to be ready for a much bigger culture shock.
right. So I understand the culture shock part, but towards the end of the documentary, some of the things they said, I thought, what are we doing here? Are you trying to like tick the whole thing down, or
Hmm.
what are we doing here? But I think it's worth to watch. I know you said your wife's watching it, and I think it's worth. I mean, you probably are gonna have a really hard time sitting through it, but
I'll try, and I'm sure she wouldn't mind watching it again.
yeah. So, all right. On that note, Happy New Year, everybody, and we might take a break next week, so we'll see. But we do have an interview set up for a candidate. We're trying to anyway. Anything else you want to say, Bob?
Nope, nope. Just thank everybody for watching, and I think we really need to try to get on a regular schedule with this. Maybe after the holidays we'll be able to do that.
Yeah,
It's
we'll
just
be
been
able to
sort of
participate.
sporadic right now.
Yeah, my schedule is a little crazy, so I understand. I
Hmm.
apologize. Yeah. All
Okay.
right.
All right. Thanks, Sherry. Thanks everybody for watching.